Welcome to The Print Uninterrupted, and today my guest is Dr. Małgorzata Bonikowska, and she is one of the foremost voices on foreign policy in Poland and in Europe. She dons many hats. First of all, I'd like to mention that she is an advisor to the Polish MFA as well as an advisor to the European Commission. And she is also an academic, she's a professor, she is the president of two very prominent think tanks in Warsaw, and she specializes in the EU foreign and security policy. And in that gambit, she's looking particularly on India. So she's no stranger to India either. So, Dr. Bonikowska, welcome to India. What an honor it is to have you and host you for the Print Uninterrupted. So, first, let's just begin from Poland, your country. We keep hearing of Poland being the new success story in Europe today. How?
First of all, let me thank you for the invitation and all the people who watch this interview. Indeed, I'm so happy to be able to represent my country, Poland, in India. It has been a long time. In Poland, we have been looking at India. Actually, you may not know, but Poland has one of the oldest Indology in Europe, starting from 18th century. At our universities, we were studying your culture, your languages, etc. But I'm a political scientist, so this is a relatively new angle. We look at Asia, especially South Asia, with a very, very careful look. Also because Poland was not really a global power. Maybe some of you know that in history we had a complicated history. 1,000 years of statehood, 1,000 years of statehood. So we are very proud of that. But we lost the independence at the end of 18th century. So in 19th century, Poland was not in the map, and we regained independence after that. So we lost somehow this era of colonialism. Poland never had colonies anywhere. So we have a clean, card with Asia, Africa, with everybody.
But actually, that's something that is not understood well enough. So we should talk about that later. How we are also similar in our experience of, being colonized.
Yes, this is something I want to stress. I mean, actually, it's really interesting to observe within the European Union concept that we have 27 members. Earlier it was 28, but the UK left because of Brexit some years ago. Some countries of Western Europe, Southern Europe, Northern Europe, they used to have colonies. So you would associate them with colonialism and imperialistic power. While our region, Central Eastern Europe, we never had colonies. Actually, we were colonized ourselves. We lost independence because our territory was divided into a part for Russian Empire of the Tsars, Austrian Empire, and German Empire, the Prussians. So we ourselves feel like very close to what people in India may think about imperial powers. The only difference is that for us, we include in imperial powers, in colonial powers, Russia. So even after the Second World War, when we had Soviet Union, Soviet Union was also dominating us. So we were in a so-called Soviet bloc.
The Warsaw Pact. Warsaw is the capital of Poland.
Exactly. We were never part of Soviet Union, but we were part of a Soviet bloc for 40 plus years. And we were very happy that all this construction collapsed because communism in practice was really a bad system. So after 1989, all these changes started, and we were able to catch up with different political system and economic system, with capitalism, with democracy. We were back to normal, and now we are one of the leading powers within the European Union, the 6th EU economy, the 20th world economy. We are very proud of that. And also one of the leading political powers because of also the geographic position of Poland. We are just next doors to Ukraine. We have a direct border with Russia. And we are at the Baltic Sea, which brings us very close to Finland, Sweden, Nordic countries. So we are one of the very important countries of the eastern flank
So, what has Dr. Bonikowska, I mean, just to sort of understand this better, because like you just mentioned, that Poland's history and Poland's journey, to where it is today has not been easy, okay? And right now, and let's just now try to frame this after the 24th February 2022 developments, which was a full-scale invasion by Russia. How has Poland managed to sort of rise up within the European theater that way? I'm sure, I mean, I would like you to also explain a little bit on the Weimar Triangle, of which Poland used to be a part, and now, of course, no meaningful discussion on European security or Ukrainian security is actually possible without including Poland in it. I mean, how has this happened? Because for the longest time, we have been used to looking at Europe and the E3, which is UK, France, and Germany. So how do you sort of then place Poland in it? Because today Poland is right there, and
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we used to have close relations during the Cold War because Poland was in the Soviet bloc, while India in the 60s, 70s was also very socialistic, let's put it this way. And your relations with Soviet Union were very good. Indira Gandhi, your prime minister, came to Poland. So our relations were very good. But in the same time, we had these two blocs fighting, right? So Western European countries, as you rightly mentioned, the UK, half of Germany was divided. France, they were with the US and they were forming this Western world. In 1989, there was a collapse of Soviet bloc, and then in the 1991, there was a collapse of Soviet Union. So all changed. There was just one leading power, which was the United States. So Europe decided to unite. And the Western part united with Eastern and Central part. And now we are all 27. So Poland joined the European Union in 2004, which is 21 years ago. And we used this time, I think, very well. So we were able to catch up very quickly with economic progress. We used also the EU funds after many years, because we could not, after the Second World War, use the Marshall Plan offered by the Americans to Europeans.
Soviet Union for their bloc, and you were with the
Soviet Union said no to this. We could not use this money, so we could not really rebuild our not only economy but even our infrastructure after the Second World War. So we did it very late, but we finally did it. So now, if anybody from India goes to Warsaw, by the way, we have a direct flight from Delhi, from Mumbai, directly to Warsaw. So please use our airline lot. So you will see that Warsaw, Krakow, Gdańsk, our cities are actually the same like any other European cities. We are just next doors to Germany, and Germany is our main economic partner. It is also the strongest EU economy. It's the number 3 in the world. We are number 20, so we are catching up. But what I want also to stress is the incredible success story Poland did in just 35 years. 89, we started changes. 2025, we are talking. So after 21 years in the EU, but before another years when we started the changes, altogether 36 years. So it's just one generation, 2 generations, not very long time. We were really able to catch up with the Western economies. And we are very proud of that, thanks to very, very hard work of Polish people, of Polish entrepreneurs. By the way, you have in Hindi, I think, the word jugaad.
Jugaad.
Which is like being smart, thinking,
Street smart.
Yes, so that's exactly what we also have. I think Poles and Indians are in this regard very similar. We are very creative. We are able to work hard as Indians do. And that's why in such a short time we were able to catch up with the Western powers. So today, Poland is one of the leading EU countries, which is not really seen yet in Delhi. This is something we want to stress.
No, exactly. And I mean, you have mentioned, you've given such a great primer of where things are coming from. And we genuinely have a historical, so to say, equation and ties. But it's just so that in the modern era, India, for its own reasons, has not really been engaged the Polish side as much. But having said that, you mentioned the direct flights. We also have a strategic partnership which has been recently signed, and that has been seen as a great success. In fact, both you and many of those who have been working on India and Poland have also been saying that this strategic partnership should have come many, many years earlier. But anyway, better late than never. So there is a strategic partnership. The Indian MOD also took a decision to open a new defense wing in Poland, in its embassy in Poland, in Warsaw. And we have a brigadier rank officer there, and who is very proactive in terms of what can be done in, for deepening the defense industry ties. But before I come to India specifically, Dr. Bonikowska, I would like to understand from you a couple of things. Recently, Poland was also chairing the Council of the EU. Now, just could you help us tell us a little bit about why this is significant and what changes did Poland make? Because it came exactly at a time when Donald Trump had taken over the White House, and the whole world has now been sent in a tizzy because of that.
Very good question. You rightly stressed the role of the presidency in the EU structure.
Yeah.
The presidency is on rotated basis. Every 6 months, another EU member state takes the presidency. So Poland was leading the EU Council in the first half of this year. So now it's over. But it was important because of the momentum. It was momentum in the EU because it was actually where the new EU institutions started to work, the EU Commission in the new framework, in the sense of the new people at the top, then the new EU Parliament elected last year. And in the same time, you're rightly saying, the new President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Right.
And in the same time, as you mentioned, we also have a new situation in Europe. It has been 3 years. We have a war at the eastern flank, which positioned Poland in a very center of gravity of the events, because Poland has a direct border with Ukraine, but we also have a direct border with Russia and with Belarus. And then we also have a border, we have a coastline at the Baltic Sea. So we are in the middle of the whole of eastern flank from Finland to Greece, which is an eastern border of NATO and eastern border of the EU as well. And Poland is in the center of that. So we became, without our will, because of Russian invasion in Ukraine in 2022, we became first hub, logistic hub for all the operations in Ukraine. We have an airport, we have roads, every single politician, including the President of the United States, if he wants to go to Ukraine, to Kiev, it has been through Poland. It has to be through Poland because we have no airplanes over Ukraine. It was closed, the airspace. So everybody takes trains, also we do. Together.
That's the only way to actually go to Ukraine. So you have to, from Warsaw, go to one of the bordering towns, and from there you take a train.
Exactly. And the Prime Minister Modi did exactly the same thing. So we used this moment also to reopen relations with India. And I think last year, August last year, was really an important moment when the Prime Minister of India came finally to Warsaw after 40 years, 40 years of not being in Poland. So I think it's a new reopening. We signed indeed a strategic partnership with India. It is important to stress that with China, we have a strategic partnership signed in 2011. So in a way, we were very late with India. But I think all these events, both sides, India and Poland, rediscovered the importance of these relations. So Poland keeps going, keeps being a hub for all their operations in Ukraine, but we want this war to be over. And in this regard, we are on the same page with India. No one wants this war to continue. The only difference is that obviously we understand the Indian position on this subject. We know that India developed very friendly relations with Soviet Union under the Cold War. We understand why. For us, we were in the Soviet bloc, so we were
Yes.
very close to Soviet Union, but this was against our will. So we were dominated by Russia, by Soviet Union. So imagine, we, like Indians, we understand very well what dominance means. And Poland understands Ukraine. That's why we are very much for Ukrainian cause, because we understand that they don't want to be dominated by any country, Russia included. It's the same way, like imagine in India that the British would say, okay, let's just go back to the time London was deciding for New Delhi. The UK wanted to have still strong influence on what India is doing.
Right.
It's the same exactly what happened to Ukraine and Russia.
Can I just stop you here, because there is a perception in India, and I'm sure you're no stranger to India, so you may be knowing it well. And this is also a way to sort of clarify a lot of disinformation, because you work on disinformation, by the way, and we'll come to it. But one of the things is, Margot, is that now there is a perception that the war in Ukraine is being sort of pushed by the Americans. Earlier it was CIA, and it's not really the Ukrainians that want to do it. It's not really the Europeans that want to do it, because Europe is being dependent on Russian oil and gas, and they, for your manufacturing, you're dependent on China. For your security, you were dependent on the US. So you don't really have a say there. In my opinion, that has been changing rather fast, because after Donald Trump came and the United States of America changed its position on Ukraine in so many ways, the war is still going on.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we are also trying to understand better is that what is the level of agency that Ukrainians have, that country like Poland have, Europeans have, vis-a-vis a big power like America? Is it just pushed by America? Is this just a America versus Russia thing? Or what do you think? Do you think that no, there is agency, and that agency needs to be given to the stakeholders that deserve it? Otherwise, the war can't end. What do you think about that?
First of all, let me stress that obviously we have very close tie-ups with the US. US is our major ally. It's a member of NATO. It's a leading member of NATO. But the EU is a separate entity.
Yeah, of course.
And with the time, especially once Donald Trump first time took the office, the EU started to see importance of strategic autonomy.
Yeah.
So the EU capitals not necessarily want to share all the views of the US.
Okay.
Absolutely not. We have our own understanding, but we want to cooperate, right? So we treat the US as a very important partner,
Right.
but we understand also that the US may have different interests. It's a separate country. By the way, US is less and less under the European history influence, because less and less Americans, the origin of the families, less and less from Europe.
Okay.
It's only 60% of the American population today, 60%, whose origin are from Europe. The other 40% will be Latinos, Asians, and these people are growing. Also, the influence of other languages like Spanish, Chinese are growing in the US. So US is not Europe,
Okay.
and Europe is not the US. However, our relations with America, obviously, we want to keep it, and we want these relations to be strong. But in the same time, we discovered that once Russia invaded Ukraine, and that's a fact, it is not really negotiable. I mean, it's evident.
Yeah.
Russia invaded Ukraine, used force, used army to conquer territories which were not Russians. So it posed a big problem to the international community, in our understanding, that such behavior cannot be supported. Because if Russia wins in Ukraine, if Russia keeps the territories, not only Crimea, but also eastern Ukraine,
Yes, of course.
it will open a Pandora box.
Okay.
You know, there are so many other authoritarian regimes in Asia, in Africa, maybe elsewhere, who want to change the borders by force. If you agree to this, we will open unlimited number of wars all over the world. We just don't want to do that, because Europe is guilty for First World War and Second World War.
Yeah.
We were a continent of wars. And our powers were fighting each other. And we brought wars to all the continents. So after 1945, I think the Europeans, who lost, by the way, millions of lives, Poland lost 6 million people in the Second World War. We just don't want the war to be a solution.
Yeah.
To us, the war doesn't resolve anything. So Europeans, by nature, don't want to go into this anymore. And this is also a problem with the Russians, because Russians know it very well, that the Europeans are pacifists.
Yeah.
Maybe unlike the Americans, who keep hard power. Europe more developed soft power.
Yeah.
So we don't want to go back to this story of fighting, invading. We just had enough.
Okay.
But Russia did it to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So the question to us Europeans, but also to Indians and to all the international communities, what are we going to do with this precedent?
Yeah.
Are we going to reward Russia for this? Is Russia in future, is Russia able to win and keep the territories or not? So we say in Europe, no, we cannot let that happen.
And it's also not the first time, because the first one was in 2008. Because I mentioned this particularly because there's also a perception that Europeans do not want to have a diplomatic dialogue. And I think this is not really a true perception, because in 2008 there was a Georgian war, in 2014 there was Crimea. Both these times it was, I think, decided consciously that nobody wants to, elevate the risks of alienating such an important power such as Russia. But 2022 was a different ballgame, because it was the third time. But just before we go further on that, there is also a perception, and please tell me if I'm incorrect here, is that there are problems between Ukraine and Poland. So what about that? We keep hearing about that in the Indian media a lot. Also, this comes at a time when you have a different president and a different prime minister. So could you also help understand that position a little bit? And is there any merit? How should we understand that Poland and Ukraine are not on the same page on certain issues, and what happens to that?
Very good question. I mean, so many things on the table. Let me start with the vision of war and peace. Poland is the last country in Europe who wants to have bad relations with Russia.
Okay.
We are neighbors,
Yes.
and we have been, as societies, close for centuries.
Of course.
And we had also this imagination, in 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, that it is not against Russians, it's against regime in Russia, which were a regime of tsars.
Yes.
Who was the enemy? So we were having even an image of and perception of common joint fight of Russian society, Polish society, and other nations of Central Eastern Europe against authoritarian powers. So please don't believe that Poles are anti-Russian. It's not true.
Yeah.
By the way, why should we look for a problem with a neighbor? No, I remember very vividly, 2014, Polish government was planning to celebrate a Russian year in Poland and Polish year in Russia.
Okay.
There was a joint decision of Russian and Polish governments to stress that the relations are not bad, that we are neighbors. We are both Slavic nations, by the way.
Yeah.
Our languages are not the same, but they're quite similar, right?
Yeah.
So we really don't have a feeling that we are anti-Russian. But what we don't want to happen is that authoritarian regime, which in fact is in Russia very strong right now, and Vladimir Putin is in power over 25 years.
That's right. Yeah.
So he started different, and then he changed. He changed his way of running Russia.
Yeah.
And a war in Georgia was the first signed in 2008. Then there were events, then they were 2014 taking Crimea. So we stopped thinking about celebrations.
Yeah.
Russians, Poles started to be really careful. And then 2022 was an open invasion. So Poles, but also other European nations, first of all, tried to avoid this war.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And we engaged so much of diplomacy into that. Please go into records from 2021, 2022. How many European leaders went to Kremlin to convince Vladimir Putin not to invade? But he decided to do it. So we had to respond. We have to respond. We had to respond, and our response cannot be weak, because if we demonstrate weakness, any authoritarian power understands weakness as strength.
Yeah.
So we have to demonstrate strength. So this is behind that. As far as Poland and Ukraine, it's a complicated history, but it's also a brotherhood.
Okay.
So Ukrainians and Poles are also Slavic nations. Our languages are quite similar. We are neighbors. But in the same time, Ukrainians were under the Polish rule and under the Russian rules.
Yes.
I'm talking about
Lithuanian Commonwealth and all that.
Exactly. This was Poland dominating,
Yeah.
but also Lithuanians were there. But Ukrainians were, let's say, a smaller nation within, and they wanted to be independent. And actually, that's true. Poland as a kingdom did not let them get independence, but Russian Empire neither.
Yeah.
So Ukraine, in the midst of 17th century, was actually divided.
Yeah.
And Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth took one side,
Yes.
the western part of Ukraine, and Russian Empire of Tsars took eastern part of Ukraine.
That's right.
And it has been a reality for circa 300 years.
Okay.
So Ukrainians, we can say, okay, their fight for being independent, it's a long fight. And partly it was also against Poles.
Yeah.
But after that, with, centuries going on, etc., we understood that very well, because we also lost independence.
Yeah.
Russia has eaten us.
Okay.
Austrians and Prussians, meaning Germans, have eaten us. So
Yeah.
we were under colonization as well. So this changed our perception in 19th century. And I think 20th century brought back both Poland, but also Ukrainian aspirations.
So what is the problem today?
The only problem was that Ukraine, as independent country, did not survive, because the Red Army conquered Ukraine, again, eastern part.
No, I understand.
So the problem was that Ukraine became a Soviet Union republic.
Yeah.
So Ukraine was not independent. So within the Soviet Union, unlike Poland, unlike Hungary, unlike some countries of Central Eastern Europe, Ukraine made a part of Soviet Union. And Russians, Soviets, had this imagination Ukraine is really a part of Russia.
Yeah.
While Poland also had this image that Ukraine is something else. And the problem now is that Russians try to recall not only the presence, not only now the situation when Ukrainians fight for independence against Russia, but they want also to recall historical memories from 17th centuries, 18th centuries, and also 20th century, that we had a lot of difficulties between the nations.
Right.
So history is like
an information kind of a warfare going
yes,
on?
it's a lot of narratives put in the internet by Russia. And of course, history matters.
Yes.
It is like, very sensitive issue
Yes.
between Poles and Ukrainians. Poles and Germans, by the way,
Of course,
we were attacked by Nazi Germany in 1939. So it's very easy to trigger, these bad emotions.
Yeah.
So Russia today is in war with the West, and including Poland. So Russians try to reopen these chapters.
And Dr. Bonikowska, since you're mentioning, information warfare, etc., and of course I have to ask you this because you've been working so much, especially during the time when Poland was chairing the presidency of the EU Council. So this entire toolbox called FIMI, foreign interference, manipulation, etc. So please tell us a little bit about that, and please tell us in what way are you having meaningful conversations with Indians on this particular aspect?
It's a very good question. So coming back to the Polish presidency to the EU Council, it is always a 6 month, which gives a leading country a lead. So Poland was chairing all the meetings of the EU Council, especially ministers, but also working groups. And we wanted to stress that this disinformation tactics presented by Russia, or largely put disinformation war, or FIMI also, meaning foreign information and manipulation interference, is one of the key topics, not only for us, but for all Europe. Actually, for all democracies, including India. And here we see that Poland and any other European country and India, we are at the same page because we strongly believe in Indian democracy. We see that it's a very vibrant continent, 1,400,000,000 people. So it's like Europe. I mean, but Europe is smaller. European Union is 450 million people only. So India is much larger, but still you are democratic, and you seem to be really devoted to this model. Every Indian has an opinion. Like in Poland, we say 2 Poles, 3 opinions. So we can say the same about Indians. So that's democracy. Our style is to express our views, to criticize the government, to have opinion on everything, to put it in the social media. Every one of us has a voice. So Russia and other authoritarian regimes, China, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, there are other regimes who see this as a weakness. Because if you live in an authoritarian regime, you don't have that. You don't have a freedom of opinion. You cannot express your views. So it's relatively easy to control the societies. While in our countries, India, Europe, we freely say. So we are very exposed to disinformation and FIMI, so foreign interference, meaning that these authoritarian regimes don't put information to their own societies. They try to disinform us. Why? To destabilize us, to divide us, to, for example, increase tensions, like you rightly said, Polish-Ukrainian history.
I mean, even in our case, we had a very close brush with disinformation and all the toxic narrative building recently from Pakistan, especially after Operation Sindoor. And that is why I think we are having more meaningful discussions on how to develop a certain set of responses, a coordinated response in order to tackle it. But it's the sheer nature of this problem is so difficult. But yes, I know that keeps bringing you to India. So, of course, you must tell us what developments do you see in the case of, or how do you think a coordinated response can be put together? In your case, the enemy or the source of it is different. In our case, it's more coming from China and Pakistan, that is backed by China, but the experience is the same. So therefore, I see a convergence. And also, we are also at a point when India and the EU are close to signing a very ambitious free trade agreement. And the grapevine is that because Donald Trump is making everybody's life so difficult, it actually opens up space for better engagement between India and the European Union. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think both sides, Europe and India, in a way rediscover each other, because maybe earlier, Europe was very much into ourselves, our own internal problems, into transatlantic relations also. And by the way, we used to have for many years in the 90s, in 2000, very good relations with Russia as well. But now all this changed. So I think because of Donald Trump on one side, which Donald Trump administration poses a lot of issues to Europe. I mean, we are not very happy with the style and with.
You've just signed a free trade agreement with them, like a trade deal with them, not a free trade agreement, where you agreed for 15% tariffs and also $700 billion worth of investment.
Yes, anyway, so we would love to keep Americans in, but we can see that, these deals, the Americans look first at their own interest, and for us it obviously poses a question that we have to build our own internal strength, keeping as much as we can good relations with the US, obviously. With Russia it's very tough right now, so we have sanctions, we have no business with Russia, and until the war is over, which I stress Europe wants to finish. Europe really wants this war to be ended, but not at the Russian conditions. We want to work on the compromise in somewhere. Ukrainians have to decide that they will be happy with the result. For us, it's a security issue, and it's existential threat. We cannot allow any country, especially Russia, but any country, to be able to invade a neighbor with force. So this brings us very close to countries like India, because we
Yeah.
believe that despite the distance, geographical distance, we have a lot of things in common. First of all, we should discuss much more a situation of our societies,
Yeah.
because in democracies we really are exposed, very much exposed to the disinformation strategies of
Okay.
the authoritarian regime,
Yeah.
whatever this regime could be, China, India, China, Russia, or whoever. Then we could maybe find out common answers. We
Yeah, yeah.
believe it's not about monitoring, it's also about reaction,
Yeah.
how to protect our citizens.
Educate our
Exactly.
people,
For
of
example, in
course.
India, you decided a very tough decision. You closed down TikTok, for example, and
Yeah.
WeChat
Yeah.
in India because of the Chinese practices. In Europe, we still did not decide how to handle China, because China is maybe not so active as Russia
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
In your case, it may be vice versa.
Yeah.
And you also have these historically good relations with Russia. So I think all this has to be discussed,
Yeah.
because we respect your point of view as well. We want to also learn what
Yes.
is your perception, what is your experience, but we also want to tell you how it looks from our side. And maybe together we can build some common solutions to these changes. That's one. Second, we strongly believe it's a high time the EU as a player, which is, by the way, the second world largest economy put together.
Yes, of course, in terms of the GDP, yeah.
Yes. So we absolutely share the view that with India, with such a strong and promising economy, India is number 4 now in the world, and we keep fingers crossed for you in the future, that this could be a very promising partnership. That's why we want this FTA to be signed.
Yeah.
And we think there is a lot of businesses in India already very successful in Europe and vice versa.
Yeah.
But we have to learn each other. It's not only the Western Europe, not only UK who has a monopoly to understand India.
Of course.
Countries like Poland want to really be more present, more active.
No, well, that's true, because one of the legacies, in my opinion, of the Modi government, and especially the 3 terms, would be this great footprint across Europe. It's not just Western, but it's also the Balkans, Central and Eastern Europe, Baltics. I think that government should be commended for that. And just your last thoughts on what role do you think India can play in terms of bringing security in order in Europe again? So in terms of providing some kind of a mediation, involving itself with some kind of a reconstruction of Ukraine, whatever that may be, what role do you think can India play in terms of getting Europeans that order back?
Very good question, and a lot of hopes from the EU side, especially countries like Poland. For us, India is a huge player. We see India as a global power. One of the most important. We don't agree that the future, it is a repetition of a Cold War between 2 powers. We don't want to have a bipolar world, just United States and China. Because Europe, there's no place for Europe then. The same with India.
We converge on how we look at the world in terms of a multipolar order.
Exactly.
We want to reinforce that.
We expect the future world order to be multipolar, where India is one of the polars, one of the leading powers. And we would like Europe to be at the same page, to be one of the leading powers. We want to somehow handle other powers, US, China, Russia, but maybe also some other members of G20. There are rising powers, countries like Indonesia, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Brazil.
And also, let's not forget Japan, because recently our Prime Minister was in Japan, and Japan, one of the closest partners in the West. Everybody keeps talking about the United States, but Japan and the EU have not only the world's biggest FTA, but are also immensely close strategic partners.
Absolutely.
So that is also a kind of a bridge for us, because India and Japan are very close partners.
Absolutely.
So,
all this has to be redefined, and we believe that the future is ours. We cannot just be dominated. India cannot agree on that. Europe definitely doesn't want to agree that somebody else decides about our future. So in the bipolar world, the US, China, no, definitely not. So to avoid this reality, India, Europe. We have to really get much closer, have a much wider understanding of each other, have many more interactions. And India has to also see that Europe is not only the Western part.
Of course.
Please see that Europe is now 27 members, the EU, and maybe we will enlarge. We would love to enlarge, taking Ukraine, for example, in the future.
Moldova, maybe.
So, yes, so let's just see European Union as a larger place with whom you can develop the relations. And Poland being just next door to Germany and France and Weimar, you mentioned this Weimar formula, we see this as a key chance to build the European future strategy.
Thank you so much on that note, Dr. Małgorzata Bonikowska, for taking out the time. And I hope your India visit is fruitful as always. And we look forward to having you again here. And you were watching The Print Uninterrupted. That was Professor Bonikowska from Poland.
Thank you.